The gavel cracked against the wood with a sharp finality that made Isabella flinch. The courtroom's silence was suffocating, broken only by the shuffling of papers and the deliberate cough of someone in the back row. She sat stiffly, her palms damp against the polished oak table, her pulse thundering so loudly she wondered if everyone else could hear it. Trevor sat across from her, his posture relaxed, his smile almost imperceptible but present, the kind of smile that wasn't meant for charm, but for victory. It was in that exact moment Isabella realized she wasn't just fighting for money or property. She was fighting for her very sense of self, for the life she had built, and for the truth that Trevor had spent years twisting into something unrecognizable. The judge's voice blurred in her ears as she stared at Trevor. His eyes, cold and calculating, caught hers for a brief moment. He lifted a hand casually, as if adjusting his tie, but she knew what it meant. It was a silent reminder. You never saw me coming, and now you can't stop me. Her mind spun back, unbidden, to the first night she had seen him. It had been at a charity gala, all crystal chandeliers and polite laughter, where the air smelled of perfume and expensive scotch. Isabella, already known for her elegance and influence, had attended out of obligation more than desire. That's when Trevor had approached her. His charm was disarming, his compliments carefully chosen, his interest too intense to ignore. For the first time in years, Isabella felt truly seen. She didn't know it then, but that was Trevor's gift, making people feel chosen before carefully hollowing them out. At first, it was bliss. Dinners that stretched late into the night, long drives with the windows down, whispered promises that wrapped around her heart like silk. He was attentive, thoughtful, and unshakably confident. But there was always something beneath it, a quiet hunger in his eyes that she couldn't quite name. Months turned into years. Somewhere between the roses and the late-night conversations, Isabella had let him into her home, her finances, her life. Trevor never forced his way. He slipped in like water seeping into cracks. He became indispensable, offering to handle small things at first: bills, errands, repairs. Soon, it was bigger things: investments, legal paperwork, property management. Each time, Isabella felt relief. Each time, Trevor grew bolder. She should have seen the signs. The subtle dismissal of her opinions. The way he isolated her from certain friends, convincing her they were jealous or toxic. The day she found one of her grandmother's heirlooms in his office drawer, and he brushed it off with a laugh. I was just keeping it safe. She let it slide by the time she realized she was being pushed out of her own life. Trevor already had the documents, the accounts, the narratives built around her fragility. He told others she was overwhelmed, forgetful, even unstable. Slowly, her name began to vanish from what she owned, replaced by his. The courtroom was supposed to be her salvation. But today, as Trevor's lawyer painted her as paranoid and unfit, Isabella felt the walls closing in. Her lifeline had come weeks earlier when she hired the pie. She remembered the man's gravelly voice, steady and unhurried, when he called her to meet. "You were right to be suspicious," he said, sliding the folder across the diner table. Inside were photos, bank transfers, emails, proof that Trevor wasn't just siphoning her wealth, he was laying the groundwork to have her declared mentally incompetent. The final step to securing everything that night. Staring at the evidence, Isabella had felt a rare clarity. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't weak. Trevor had built a web, but she still had the power to tear it apart. Now, as the judge looked down at her, Isabella inhaled slowly. She thought of her grandmother's words. Strength isn't in shouting. It's in standing when they expect you to fall. She rose from her seat. Her lawyer hesitated, whispering for her to sit, but Isabella ignored it. The courtroom quieted as she addressed the judge directly. Her voice shook at first, then steadied. She spoke not just of numbers or property, but of Trevor's patterns, his manipulations, the way he had inserted himself into her life like a parasite. And then she presented the PI's folder. Every page hit the table like a hammer. Every photograph, every forged document, every secret account Trevor had thought hidden. Trevor's face shifted for the first time. His mask slipped just slightly, but enough for Isabella to see the rage boiling beneath. She held his gaze unflinching, as if daring him to deny it. The judge called for recess, but the silence in the room spoke louder than the gavel. Isabella returned to her seat, her hands trembling, but her heart lighter than it had been in years. For the first time, Trevor wasn't in control. Still, she knew it wasn't over. People like Trevor didn't crumble in a day. They schemed, they adapted, they returned. That was the psychology of betrayal. It never really ended. But Isabella wasn't the same woman who had let him in. She was something else now. Later, as she walked out of the courthouse, the sun striking her face, she thought of how many others lived this same quiet nightmare, manipulated by the ones closest to them. That's why she promised herself her story wouldn't just end here. She would tell it, share it, warn others before it was too late. If you've followed her journey, if you know what's at stake when trust is shattered, and if you want more stories that unravel the hidden dangers behind closed doors, subscribe to Payback Diaries, because these stories aren't just fiction. They're reflections of the darkness people live through every day. Trevor's shadow still lingered in her mind. But Isabella knew one truth above all. He had underestimated her. And that was his greatest mistake. She paused, looked back at the courthouse steps one final time, then whispered to herself, "This isn't the end. It's just the beginning." And as she walked away, the weight lifted, not entirely, but enough. If you're still here, if you're still listening, let this be a reminder. The most dangerous betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from the ones you love. Protect your story. Protect your life. And never forget to subscribe to Payback Diaries, because some truths are too important to ignore.